All right. Well, guess what I get to do? I get to introduce a woman who doesn't need any introduction. If Maureen is already in your life, then you know the personal gifts she's given you. Her capacity to expand our consciousness, to transform our relationship to God and to each other. The way she encourages us to laugh at ourselves and at the stories we make up to scare ourselves silly. She gently helps us both to see what we've avoided and to rejoice in each new awareness, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. If you're meeting her for the first time, prepare to fall in love, because everybody does. In joy and in gratitude, I introduce my brilliant sister, spiritual mother, and friend. Here's Maureen.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, Reverend Elizabeth Keats. Took my breath away a little bit. That was very kind of you. And, you know, I always say, you spot it, you got it. So, so that's just how it works around here. And boy, do you got it. I mean, we are a community of people who got it, G-O-D it. And when you got it, you cannot help but move from your brilliance. And today's talk is about really activating, acknowledging, and accessing that brilliance. I know the title is Art as Activism, but it's really, truly about your fire and your passion and the way that you decide to use your energy. It's sort of a tricky conversation, because for many of us here at Speakeasy, we study A Course in Miracles, which tells us that this is all just a dream. So it's hard to like motivate activism when you're like, it's just a dream. And so we want to look at how do we want to fix or change things from a place of judgment, or do we come from a place of love? We want to enhance and heal things from a place of compassion and a place of creativity. We want to remember, like lesson 36 tells us, that our holiness envelops everything we see. And so when we come to everything from a place of letting it be enveloped with our holiness, sometimes it's actually hard to see that there is a problem. But here in this realm of duality, we do live in the experience of either seeing love or what we call a call to love. And when you get to answer the call to love, you're on point. So I think that that activism is best done when you're not out to actually change the world, but to change yourself. And I know that can sort of sound like the antithesis of activism, but I also know that when we attempt to bring something to light, that we will be changed in the bringing of it to light. And if I'm not willing to change myself as I bring light to those places that need light, then I will actually be quite miserable. I will be the unhealed healer. I will be trying to change something without changing myself. And if I attempt to bring something to light to make it wrong, I will suffer. So if I attempt to bring something to light to make it better, I will be blessed. And so we want to really walk that idea of activism from that place of my holiness envelops everything I see. So what I'm suggesting is that in your activism, that you take no prisoners, that you make no one wrong. And this is a very easy thing to do when we think about our calling. There is an Irish word called Dan that I just learned because I'm studying Irish a little bit. And Dan, D-A-N, means a gift, an offering, a craft, a calling, an allotted task. It's related to your own personal poetry. Dan is like a soul gift that we're born to deliver as our destiny. And this is the thing that's written for us. It's the thing that howls within us, the thing that's seeking expression through us. And to find your dawn and to honor and deliver your dawn is what we're all actually here for. Our dawn is this gift. And sometimes it can seem like a riddle, we might fall asleep to this gift. We might walk the world thinking, what is my gift? What is my gift? You've seen 1,000, books written about what color is your parachute and what is your gift and what's your special sauce. And we all sort of go unconscious to it. Why is that? Why do we forget ourselves? And why do we forget our gifts? Or why do we fear our gifts or devalue our gifts until they're almost dormant? And then we go about searching the world for that which we have silenced in ourselves. So we want to really be conscious about being available to wake up. And the good news is that these gifts that are coming through us, they're like clever, curious cats who will find a way to escape our fears. They will find their way out, despite our stingy natures. And so despite all of our desperate attempts to not play our part, we will, in the end, not be able to hold back the ocean. This goodness, this gift will come through you, and you will be called to retrieve these gifts. And this is what Joseph Campbell called the hero's journey. And it's this retrieving of these gifts, it's these voyages, it's these journeys, it's these pilgrimage, it's this wandering that helps us to actually value and claim and share the gifts. I use the word pilgrim and wandering, and I just want to differentiate those for you in a moment. So to go on a pilgrimage is to go in seeking and searching for that part of ourselves that needs to be expressed and exposed. To wander means to let go of trying to find it, but just trust that it will find us, and we kind of wander our way. Either of those ways of moving towards your gifts is perfect. And I have started wandering more than pilgrimage lately, and it's kind of nice. So anyway, despite this call to the adventure and the hero's journey, the hero within us can be so reluctant, because I guess we know that the journey that we're being called on, the ordination, like Paula is going through an ordination right now, buying her first house as a single mom, like these ordinations, we know they're going to polish us. They're going to pull from us a version of ourselves that had yet not been known until we actually took this journey. Like before that, I literally heard Paula say, can I own a house as a single mother? Now she's in the journey, and that idea that she can't is being killed as she steps forward. So it's like these expressions of ourselves are being called forth as we go on the journey to support the fulfillment of our dawn, of our destiny. And in the fulfillment, we will meet up with our own brilliance. We will meet up with that less limited version of ourselves. We will meet up with our genius, and we actually fear that version of ourselves. Marianne Williamson says, it's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And we all kind of have nodded in agreement around this piece of poetry because it really rings a bell within us. And of course, in Miracles, we're told that we're here to deliver, that we are actually here to create. It says that we are here to create the good, the beautiful, and holy, and that there is an innate urge to create within us. And it tells us what happens when we fulfill that urge to create is that happiness happens. Because it says to us that happiness is our function, and that God's will for us is perfect happiness. And it's obvious to anyone who's ever created anything, who's even half awake, it's obvious that creation and creating actually makes us really happy. Creating a meal, creating a song, creating a solution that gives our lives more meaning. Creativity ushers in heaven in the same way that denial of creativity ushers in hell. And we go about feeling like, oh, I'm stuck, right? So we're here to create. And as spiritual seekers, we understand the value of surrendering and seeing spiritual life as the process of becoming ever more receptive. So receiving as opposed to creating. But I like to say that the more that you actually surrender, that the more that you'll remember. Receiving as opposed to projecting. And then from this noble surrendering, we might think that, all I need to do is surrender into the will of God, is surrender and let go and let God. But that's only half of it. We don't want to just surrender. We don't want to just empty ourselves so that we can receive God. We want to receive so that we can extend. That's the whole reason we want to receive, is so that we can extend and share it. If we don't extend what we receive, we dam ourselves in God. We literally put a dam up. and it feels very uncomfortable. The flower must extend the fragrance. There's no question about it. The sun must extend the light. The birds must extend the song. And you are here as an extension of God's love. Receiving is how God extends itself into us, but it doesn't stop with our receiving, because it is alive and God lives eternally, and it continues to move not just to you, but then through you. And you see this with people who are on point. When Jody Murphy does her stand-up, when Kathy Richardson sings her songs, it just blesses everyone. And we receive this from this divine connection so that we can extend and express ourselves with others. To extend and to share is a way to make a conscious connection, number one, and to contribute to the whole. Like, that's a beautiful thing, to be a contributor to the whole. And here at Speakeasy, we have a very creative community of artists and activists and everyday angels who are just crafting and creating and conversing and connecting in love and for love. And we're a people who are seeking and sharing solutions, who are living in the solutions. That's why it feels so good here. You know, we're not a community that romances problems. And if you are someone like that, you're not going to feel comfortable here. We are individually and communally embracing ideas, the idea that art is a beautiful and powerful way to cause and create positive and helpful changes in the world. Again, like, I don't mean to spotlight too many people, but like Jody Murphy was telling me the other day, like, I love doing this kind of stand-up thing because I love making people laugh. What could be more holy than that? So we want to think. Art is activism. What actually is art? What is artful living? Art is simply the product of creativity. It's a souvenir that says, I went into the creative laboratory of my soul, my imagination, I listened, I emptied myself so that I could receive and conceive and carry these concepts and return from my own hero's journey with a gift, with an elixir to share with the community. And in sharing this elixir with the community, it strengthens it within myself. And it can be anything. It can be a painting, it can be a song, it can be drawing, a sculpture, a story, it can be a sermon, a stand-up, it can be a solution for one of life's challenges. But we don't always do this idea of hero's journey to solve problems. Basically, it's just that this is love. This is love that needs to be expressed, and it needs to seek a form, and it will emerge into a form, with or without us. I don't know if you've read the book Creative Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and she's saying like that the ideas are going to rain down on you. These creative concepts are going to rain down on you. And if you take them and bring them past the finish line, it will carry a part of your own fingerprints, but also despite you, it will find its way across the finish line. And she gives an example of how she had this idea to write this book, and she didn't really finish it and bring it past the finish line, and somebody else got the same concept and moved it past the finish line. You know, so these creative extensions, they will find a noble midwife to bring them forth, with or without you. So this becomes our own legacy. This becomes the mark that we leave in our wake. It could be a book, a building, a baby. It could be as simple as a good feeling. Can you imagine that activism could be the simple act of leaving every single encounter that you enter better than when you first arrived? When I got to meet Colum, I kind of knew that he was a person like that, but he really demonstrates that, like he lives in that. That's just one of the flavors of his own activism. So what is activism anyhow? Because we might have a polluted idea of it. And do you have any idea of what activism means to you? The root word of activism is Latin actus. It means a doing, a drive, a force, an impulse. Someone who acts on her beliefs is an activist. And a more maybe traditional version of activism is seen as energy expressed or an action taken that brings about political or social change. And this is interesting because, as I said earlier, you know, if we think about this as a dream, but we also in the dream, do we need to fulfill our dawn? Do we need to create? Is it a necessity to take action? And I'm asking you this, not because I have the answer, because I don't. I have the answers for me, but I don't have the answers for you. And I think it's a worthy thing to contemplate. is, do you excuse yourself from taking action out of fear or the belief in scarcity? Jody Murphy was around for a long time being super damn funny. And one day I said to her, like, you got to do stand-up, biatch. She was like, oh, and all of her lights went on, and since then she's just like, but she had already been doing it. So it's just like, do we excuse ourselves because what we think we're supposed to do seems like more of a profession? Or what are the ways that we amputate ourselves from fulfilling our destiny? Or do you take action out of fear that you need to do this because you're the only one that can? Or do you take action to help others and to fulfill this, need or this call for love only because you're avoiding your own life? So we really want to look at when we do and don't take action and why. What is the purpose of this action? What is the purpose of this creativity? Gandhi gives us a really good barometer when he tells us that we want to be the change we want to see in the world. And Marianne Williamson says, meditate in the morning, kick ass in the afternoon. And I kind of love that. And Marianne Williamson, as you probably noticed, is one person who's taken a lot of criticism for her activism. But we can know that we're all here playing our parts. We don't have to judge each other for how we do or do not move into our own personal destiny or creative activism. We can trust that she and we are all here playing our parts. I trust my brother. I trust my sister who's one with me. Even the idea that I would look sideways and judge somebody else's hero's journey tells me that I'm not in my own journey, that I'm giving myself an excuse not to be in my present journey. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit more practical and applicable. If Gandhi were to invite you to be the change that you wish to see in the world, what would you wish to see? And what would you have to be to assist that change? We're going to do a little note-taking a little bit into this talk, but think about that. So what are the areas that you're seeking to change? And look, there might be many. You might be able to list off a Rolodex of all the things you wish were different in the world. And these days, it feels like sometimes we're looking down the barrel of 1,000 guns, right? And as an optimist, I feel more challenged than normal, especially because the world and all of its calling for loves does seem to be on steroids sometimes with the gun issues and inequalities and global warming and poverty and pollution. And so, the hits keep coming. And I would say, for me, the first step in holy activism is, and this might sound completely radical, but it would be to not take it too seriously. And you might be thinking, what are you talking about? The gun issues, the global warming, this is that I'm going to take it seriously. How can I not take it seriously? I need to fix it. I need to fear it. I need to take it very seriously. So notice that, because everything carries the energy with which it's birthed, and you don't want to continue to add fear to fear. And this week in A Course in Abundance is one of the classes that we teach here at Speakeasy. We're crossing the bridge of humor and healing to our greater abundance. And the idea is to attempt not to take it too seriously so that we can awaken to creative problem solving. And I heard something kind of funny about creative problem solving this week. I think it was Jody that actually shared it with me. It seems that as countries in Europe are considering the looming threat of nuclear attack, something that we, probably all are taking seriously, the Ukrainians have responded with an interesting solution. It seems that they're actually planning an orgy on top of a hill outside of Kiev. So I don't know if you've heard about this, but I mean, it's seriously not taking it seriously. They're not embodying, this fear. Instead, they're embodying literally the slogan, make love, not war. That's a real thing. That's their real, solution. And I'm not saying that that's artistic activism, but it's definitely a creative solution. And from that creative solution and curiosity, something better can be birthed. So when we become over inundated with complex problems, it can be very easy to shut down, to fold, to toss in the towel, and to go numb. And that's what we don't want to do on the cusp of our creative activism. We want to see if we can leave some space for this to be joyful. And the serious nature of these issues, it makes it scary sometimes to even look at them. And so instead of just be able to just step forward with a little grace and compassion and maybe a little humor, instead we go into hiding, we go into denial, we pretend it's not working or it's not there, and we just shut down. That's not an answer. So we want to stay in that soft spot, that spot of curiosity, and not get fearful, but get thoughtful. And this is where the wise words of Margaret Mead come in handy when she says, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And we here are a small and thoughtful group of committed citizens who are up for getting curious. But before we move into that, artistic activism, we might want to determine if we have any blocks around calling ourselves activists or artists. Artist is just another word for creator, another word for channel. And we can, gently eradicate any blocks around stepping into that by reminding ourselves that we're simply the pens, God is the ink. We don't need to ask for fame or seek fame or blame in regards to our activities, because we can just be like a riverbed that lets that wisdom, that brilliance flow through us. And we have great examples of that. Mother Teresa, she said, I'm a little pen in God's hand. He does the thinking, he does the writing, he does everything. And sometimes it's really hard because it's a broken pencil and he has to sharpen it every once in a while. So, it's a beautiful imagery of how we could be. At the time of her death as a creative activist, her ministries were over 4,000 sisters, 610 ministries in 123 countries that included hospices and homes for people with AIDS and HIV and tuberculosis and soup kitchens and children and family counseling and programs and orphanages and schools. That little broken pencil that she called herself sure left a freaking major legacy. And she was just one person. And now it's obvious that that was her dawn, that was her destiny, that was her calling. And if you're not sure what your dawn, what your destiny, what your calling is, you can begin to pray that it be revealed to you. What I know is that the creative urge and the invitation is not something that we are necessarily actually creating, but more that we're remembering, that we're listening to, and honoring that ancient memory of our soul calling. We don't have to conjure it. It's something that comes through us. And perhaps the honoring of the soul calling is the very thing that actually wakes us all the way up. If God is all that there is and ever will be, and this is a dream that's already over, might our creativity be more of rediscovering? The more you surrender, the more you'll remember. And you can't surrender from God. So the only thing that you can surrender is the blocks to God. And after you surrender all that needs to be surrendered, all that's left is God. And that will wake us all the way up. In the same way that Michelangelo rediscovered the David that was in the marble. It lived and was there. Your dawn, your destiny is the same within you. Your dawn, your David, your destiny is alive and well in you, seeking to be discovered. Not just so that you can scratch that urge of creativity, but because that which wants to be freed through you is a blessing to the world. So what Davids are seeking to express through you? What is there that's screaming to be discovered? What solutions for the world's ills are you carrying in your back pocket and pretending that they're not that important or already done? Now I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I invite you to take out a pen, or you can write it down in the chat. Maybe if you want to use the chat, your answers might be inspirational to other people to help them remember their own calling. So the first question is, do you consider yourself an artist, a channel, or, a creative? And if so, what is it that you love to create? What is your medium? Do you use paint and create paintings? Do you use sugar and flour and create cookies? That's what my son does. I love him for that. Do you use your body and create dances? Do you create with comedy? Do you create gardens? Do you create songs, plays, movies, affirmations? Do you create safe spaces? Do you create cool outfits? Do you create deep conversations? What is it that you love to create, that you love to birth and bring forth? So go ahead and see if you want to share that or just write it down. This is important. The next question. The next question is, would you consider yourself an activist And what would you change if you could wave a magic wand? Maybe there's a list of things, like I said earlier, that you would want to change. Maybe you want to write those things down or share them in the chat. It might sound like, I would love to eradicate cancer, you know? I mean, it doesn't have to make any sense. It can be immense or it can be simple. It might sound like, you know, I would love to improve education. You know, so this step of like sharing what you would love to do is a way that you can get transparent with that calling. It's a way that you can sort of put that calling out on the windowsill and say, hey guys, I'm up for this. It might be a really scary thing to do. You know, when I wrote the play Transparent Love about being a parent of a transgender child, and every time I do the show, I feel like I'm putting my little thing out on the windowsill, and I don't always want to do it. But for me, it's a part of being able to work through the riddles of being a parent of a transgender child, and also being able to supply a space for other parents who struggled like I did in the beginning. So there is this almost responsibility built into it. And the responsibility is what I think makes most of us really scared. So the last question is, how are you already taking action around those things that you might want to change? Do you take action? I mean, like if it's global warming, do you compost? Do you educate yourself? Do you eat vegan? Do you have solar panels? I don't know. Do you drive a Prius? There's lots of ways that you could think of, like, am I in the solution of this? And again, like this is a personal thing, but you get to ask, like, am I living in my artistic activism? I'm not asking you these questions to test you, but to attempt to pump the well of our community for solutions and solutions and solutions where we might feel like there are dead ends. Because there's many people in our community who are all about the activity and the action and understand what actions you can take to support different areas of your of need. So drilling down into our group consciousness, our wellspring of wisdom is, you know, is helpful. And you can also be sure to share during the conversation, like, what are the activities and actions that you take to support yourself in being an artistic activist? So again, I don't ask these questions because I have the answers. Sincerely, I don't. But I want to know the answer. And I also ask because I want to wake up our individual and communal dawn. I want to inspire us to wake up and lean into our destiny. Why? Because this is part of my destiny, to wake people up. I like to wake people up. I also ask because I know that within us, there's a power and a privilege that we have, and that we could make a major difference individually and communally. And activism is a way, a part of community. It's something that we should be doing together. And we have done it in the past, and we've kind of, we're not actively, I don't think, doing it to the point that we could. Activism has played a role in ending slavery, in protecting civil rights, and promoting equality for women. I mean, it's a really viable way to help bring light into the world. And as practitioners, if you're a practitioner, we were taught to treat and move your feet, meaning to pray, but also move your feet, you know? But as in all things, we're redefining what activism can look like. It doesn't need to carry the images of angry mobs. It could be happy gardens. It could be powerful theater. It could be impactful conversations. In my own life, my Dawn is telling stories, you know, in songs and sermons and stand-up and plays, to attempt to work out life's riddles, you know, to shed a little light upon those places that we fear, and spaces and places that might have been misinterpreted. You know, I didn't always know that this was my Dom, but when I look back over my life, I get to see my patterns and I go, oh yeah, that's what I do, you know? Like when I came to church, like I didn't think church was living up to its potential. So I thought it would be better served with a conversation. So that was a part of my calling, to bring a healing power of conversation to a spiritual community. That was, you know, an internal urge that took form as Speakeasy, as Miracles Live 365, as Voice Box. I'm a story practitioner, basically. I get people talking, and that's the thing that I love. So the thing that's connected to your destiny is also something that you would do in the dark, in the middle of the night with nobody watching. You know, it's that thing that you love. This is what artistic activism can look like today. It can and should look like love in action that serves you and everyone. And it can come in major installments, like creating a documentary film like we saw last week with Nancy Hill, or it can be as simple as like reusing water bottles for planters. Really, there's no level of, of creative activism that can happen. It might be at first a little scary for you to step into your calling. It might challenge you. This calling, it might tease you, it might bully you, it might make you a bit angry before it gets you off the couch to actually do something. But I can tell you that the combination of art and activism is what the world needs now. And it adds more meaning to our lives, and it assists us in taking stands for social change. Artistic activism has the power to answer the call for love from love. There's no sacrifice in it. You simply open yourself to creative truth and direction, and you begin to take the next step. Artistic activism can connect you with people who feel the same way that you do, and those people become friends, and then those people become family, and you inspire each other to continue to get up in the middle of the night and do what needs to be done to feed the kids. And if you stay the course of listening for your internal destiny, you'll find yourself being inspired to not just solve the problem from the level of the problem, but instead be inspired to tap into the optimal potential of the solution. And remember, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Don't lose hope in the face of all of this, because in the end, that's the only thing that has ever worked. So now go and surrender and remember who you are. And that's the word.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Wow. Thank you so much, Maureen. Mari, it's your turn to take the mic.
Yes, thank you, Maureen. That was definitely inspirational and lots for all of us to think about. And I invite all of you, if this conversation fed you today, to go within and see what is yours to give. Our community exists on the generosity of our members and our guests. We are a non-for-profit organization, and we exist on your donations. We thank you for playing your part and just seeing what is for you to share with us for our daily bread. Your generous donations help us to bring spiritual leaders, artists, and speakers to our Sunday service and keep all these conversations going. So see what is yours to give today and share with us. No gift is too small. You can see in the chat, there will be a link for your donations. And if you don't find it there, you can always go to speakeasyspiritualcommunity.com and just sit with your internal teacher and see what is yours to share. And we thank you for your generous support. And I send it back to you for conversation. Stick with the conversation because this is going to be good.
Thank you. Thank you, Mari. Okay, everybody, it's your turn now. As a community, each of you has a role to play as well. We'd love to hear anything you're inspired to share. Thoughts, inspirations, insights, or questions. If you're feeling a little urge to speak, we want to hear from you. So look for that reaction tab on the bottom of your screen and click on the raised hand button. We'd love to see you. So please turn your video on. In this community, it doesn't matter whether you've had time to brush your hair or not. So I'm happy to open the conversation if, oh, there's 18 hands up. I couldn't.
No, go ahead. You can start the conversation.
Okay, well, I wanted to know if you have any hints, practical hints to help people who get into that awful place of comparing, of feeling like, you know, how can I tell stories when there's Maureen the story? So got anything to say on that? Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say, like, to do the opposite of compare, meaning to get a wingman. So like when Jody and I do stand up, we're wingmen for each other. We drive down to the classes. We're like the old bitches in the back of the class, and we don't give a shit. I mean, and I was really good when we started, and Jody was okay. And now Jody's really good, and I'm okay. And I'm like, ugh. But we can't compare each other, because like her win is my win. And get a wingman, like get a wingman, and then love your wingman more than yourself.
Beautiful.
What I would say about that. How about for you, Irene? Because you know what, Jody Murphy loves me. Oh my God, like when I do a show, like she comes like a mother, and I literally mean like not a mother effer, but a real mother. Like she's like, I'm gonna dress you and I'm gonna get you thing and you're gonna do that. And I'm like, oh my God, like it's so nice. That's so nice that you do that for me. So I try and do that for her, and I try and do that for everyone, because that competition is just, it's like, it's old spice. We need to throw it in the garbage, man. How about for you, Irene? Do you have a question?
Oh, I wanted to comment. Elizabeth, Maureen, that was fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you. A fire. A fire. I wanted to say, Elizabeth, I'm not as active as I should be, but I remember thinking that thought, well, what do I have to contribute? And I remember thinking pants. You know, pants are 2 legs and some pockets. And how many different designs of pants are there out there? Just different materials, different patterns, a different little something. So there's room for more voices. So I wanted to share what I'm doing right now. I'm really concerned. I've always been politically concerned about our democracy, and well, sort of dormant because I took it for granted until recently. And I got this book on tyranny. I heard him speak, the author. And so I went out to my park on that people run around all the time on the lake. And I just stood up on a soapbox. Well, I didn't bring my soapbox, and I started reading it because I'd gone to London one time to I forgot what it's called, a place of soapbox, and you go and you bring your soapbox and you speak about anything but the royal family. And it was just amazing. Like people would gather, and then people could talk and have conversations. But I didn't have I did have some interactions, but it wasn't big enough. So last night I looked up the author, Timothy Snyder's contact information, and I'm going to send him an email and contact him today to see if I could start a podcast and literally read this. Not a podcast, but just read his book.
I love that. You know, last week we had a woman go to England to read in front of a bookstore, and we have you reading this book. And yeah, more books, more reading. Amen. Well, next time you go reading someplace, call me. I'll bring a what do they call, a soccer chair, and I'll come and sit and watch you. I love people reading to me. Good for you. Hey, Amber, good to see you.
Hi, good to see you guys too. I haven't been here in a few months. I've been very busy with work, and you know how that goes. So I was super excited to be here this morning, and I feel like I was really meant to hear this message this morning. I'm probably gonna cry. So I have been struggling a lot for the last year with major depression. I mean, I've battled it my whole life. But this last spring, I finally got on Paxil, and I found other methods to help me. And I mean, I just have an amazing supportive community of other artists, because I'm part of a dance community and a larger performing arts community, and I mean, just photographers and all kinds of different artists. So I have this wonderful like crock pot of things that are always around me and going on. And there's times where I just don't push the on button, you know, because I'm really made a lot of progress, but I've had terrible imposter syndrome and comparing myself to other people. And I have had, so I believe that, you know, everything there's when God reaches out to me and spirit calls through me, like I'm learning to not ignore it and to just tap into that tuition and give into it. So the college where I teach, I had offered a second level because I teach. So I teach and this has been a making for 10 years of me as an adult, because I had like 13 years of dance as a kid in other styles. But I've cultivated this style of hip hop and belly dance fusion. I've studied with, I mean, for years, decades, with people from Egypt. I have friends in Egypt, with other Arabs, and getting in touch back with my street dance community. And I'm actually going to a cypher tonight, which is like a dance exchange, not a battle, but it's an exchange of energy. And I'm feeling like I can go back to those because I don't know how to describe it. Like, I didn't feel like I was worthy. I didn't feel like I belonged. But I had all this support around me. I was the only one who didn't believe it. And the college where I teach, I was going to offer a second level for my class. And they said, well, we would rather you just keep with the level 1 right now. And you know, and for whatever reason, they were like, well, we're not gonna do the level 2. I said, okay. I said, well, can I offer something else? And they said, well, yeah, sure. And this, in the back of my mind, I had been thinking about offering like some kind of like body positivity dance. And I'm you know, I'm a bigger girl, and I have people who look up to me for that reason. And I thought, God, I really, I just, I don't know why I kept putting it off and putting it off. It was just one of those things, like you had said, like, it's the responsibility sometimes of it that we fear the most, because in that light that we fear the most, because, and now I'm realizing I really do have this spiritual responsibility to reach out to other people and help them feel comfortable and safe in their bodies, and help them, whether they're going through trauma, whether they're transgender, whether they're aging, whether they're bigger, whether they've struggled with eating disorders, whatever it is.
You don't have to do that from a place of responsibility. You already have enough passion. We can feel it, right? Number one. Number two is that flower fragrance is going to leave you. Just let it flow from you. Don't feel like you have to do more to put on yourself, because that's going to make you feel more depressed. It's going to weigh you down. So just allow yourself to just allow it to flow from you. And if it doesn't feel like it's flowing from you, then take care of yourself.
And I do feel like I'm finally at a place where it is flowing through me. And I'm because I've been taking care of myself very intensely for the last several weeks.
Yeah.
And
there is a responsibility to it, but the responsibility shouldn't carry stress.
Right.
If you can't do it in peace, you can't do it.
Absolutely.
And that's okay.
And I feel like I'm finally at a place where I can do that, and I'm excited about it. And I'm excited to share that with people. And I will keep that in mind, to not let that weight like sit on me too heavy, because you're right, that will just take me in the opposite direction of where I want to go. Yeah,
and we're already trying to reel you into Speakeasy, because we would love for you to teach a class here on body positivity for sacred.
I would love to do that.
Okay. Regina's going to reach out to you. So
okay.
Awesome.
Thank you for letting me share about that. I really needed to hear that this morning.
Yeah, that's awesome. How about you, Jody Murphy?
Hey, thanks for the shout out today about my stand up and stuff, but I do owe it to you. And what I wanted to point out to you guys is this. Sometimes it comes down to a tiny mad idea. And Maureen just said, you should do stand up. And there was something like, yeah, I could never do that. And she just kept at me. And I mean, it's just so much fun. And this is what I would encourage you guys. No matter what age, be fucking ridiculous and try something new. Like, Amber, I'm down for your class for schnizzle. And I recommend the joy that comes out of the maybe I can is such a blessing and a miracle in and of itself. So thank you so much, Maureen. Your talk today was fire, and you're so inspirational to everybody. And you are our tiny mad idea.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jody. Okay. Hi, Ben.
Well, hi there. Sure appreciate your talk today. I really, really do. It was exactly what I needed to wake up to in both in spirit and physically wake up to. It's really great. In some of the encounters I have in activism and just approaching people, is activism sometimes has this meaning to it for people, which I had no idea has this meaning to people, where it means like they got to take on the world. If I'm in activism, then I am doing something really big, and it's super uncomfortable, and it's right in somebody's face. And you did talk about the fact that that's not necessarily the case. And as I was listening to your talk, I just came up with the idea that, and I will offer that now, activism, lending my hands to the values of my heart in ways that I feel drawn.
Yes.
Right? So that word activism can be activating in a way that people go, oh, she's asking, or they're asking me to do something that I just don't have the bandwidth for. And the fact is, you know, through creativity and through just awareness and through, you know, sometimes any level of courage, or just leaning into what my heart is drawing me towards is really it. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that is perfect. You know what I mean? And to remember, we have two hands. We're not all the hands. We're just two hands, lending our hands from our heart. I just love it. Thanks, Ben. I write that in the chat so we remember it. Hi, Colum.
Hey guys, I had the great pleasure, privilege of meeting Maureen in the flesh there 12 days ago here in Ireland, and indeed Bella, and we shared some snacks together with Mia. I don't think Mia's here today, but I really enjoyed today, Maureen. I really enjoyed that talk. I love this idea of creative activism, and one of the problems that you mentioned a couple of things. I made a few notes. You mentioned the Rolodex. There are so many problems out there that there's, what, you know, we could spend all evening listing them off. So the challenge with so many problems in the world is we can often, you know, get overwhelmed. And I think we just need to lean into the one idea that we feel most passionate about, that moves us, because it can't be everything. If we try to do everything, we're already going to fail. So, you know, I loved what Amber was talking about there, you know, Amber stepping into her own space. I can't dance. I can't teach dance like Amber can. I can't write songs like Seamus can. I can't, in fact, ladies, none of you can be Maureen Muldoon except Maureen Muldoon, but Maureen Muldoon can't be any of you either. So we have to just be ourselves and be the very best version of ourselves. And there's a Viktor Frankl quote that I think I may have said here before in Speakeasy. He said, we detect rather than invent our missions in life. So rather than trying to shoehorn ourselves into some, you know, creative activism fad, let's maybe take a step back and say, well, what is it that I can do? And then just do that. That's all we need to do. Just do that. I just need to be Colum O'Brien, best version of Colum O'Brien. Maureen Muldoon needs to be the best version of Maureen Muldoon, and so on for the rest of us here in Speakeasy. So just wanted to share that. Maureen, once again, thank you. Fabulous conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Colum. And that just really puts a nail in it, you know, that it doesn't have to be like, you know, climbing Mount Everest. It's just like you're here to do what is yours to do, that lights you up. So I would also love to hear from you, Elizabeth, about, because I know that you've seen activism in many forms and stages. So
you know, I was going to say something, because initially when you started, Maureen, I was thinking, oh, I don't do any of these things. And then I thought about, and I'm sharing this because I think this might inspire some people. I started volunteering at the food bank a year ago. And when I started, it was a gloomy place. There was a whole lot of putting the food out and doing it efficiently. And I just started making friends with everybody. And now the nun came to me the other day and said, this has become a party. So the people line up to get their food and we know them and we love them and we laugh. And I realized that's kind of just what you're talking about. It's not handing out vegetables to people who need them. It's love, it's extending love into the community. And the nuns now the nuns put googly eyes on the vegetables, and it's like become an entirely different experience. So if anybody's ever thought about doing that kind of work and thought, oh, it'll be so depressing, and it isn't, and it doesn't have to be. So thanks for this incredible talk. Yeah.
great. I mean, that's so great. Like, you bring your own party. It will be what you think it will be. That's so great. Yeah, that's why I think it would be great to continue the conversation on like the sexy nature of artistic activism. That's another title. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Maureen. I know Jody brought up age, but I just wanted to mention that again because age can hold you back 20 years and you're going to be 20 years older anyway. So I don't think there's anything really that age should really hold you back on. So if you're thinking that I'm too old to do blank, if it's in your heart and in your mind, you're not too old to do blank. So go ahead and pursue it and do it, because if not, 20 years goes by really fast. One day you're 50, then you look up 20 years later, you're 70, and it feels like 3 years. Do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And last week, we had another great example of somebody who was just like still like, smashing glass ceilings, making films past the age of 75, becoming a filmmaker. Yes, more please. And besides, what? One thing I noticed is that like the older you get, the easier it is to break records in your age group. Because there's less people who are trying it. So you could be like the oldest person who ever made a film. You know what I mean? You can't be the youngest person anymore, but you can be the oldest person, and that's kind of cool. If you need to break a world record, if that's on your to-do list. Yeah, anybody want to share anything else before we bring up Colin for our closing song? The part of the idea of this conversation was to also begin to think of as a community, if this drums up inspiration for you, like we already saw, like Amber saying, I want to dance, and Regina's like, great, dance here, like do it for our community and we'll support you in it. If there are things that are calling to your heart that you're like, hey, I want a parade, a pride parade, or hey, I want to do, a food pantry, we're here to support those ideas. So you bring the ideas in the fire and we will create a container for it and find you some wingmen to do what you love to do. One of the ideas that I had around stand-up, because that's like one of our new flavors, is like to do clean girls, dirty stories. Because we have a lot of sober women in our community, and to like have them do their comedy and have it go towards something, maybe a recovery home. So anyway, like there's so many creative ways that we can get into the play of it. And I hope that this inspires you to do just that. Thanks for hosting today, Elizabeth. And I guess we can pass this over to Seamus.
Cheers. That was really beautiful sharing. I changed what song I wanted to do like 4 different times based on what everyone was saying. Also, maybe it's not my place, but I just want to applaud everyone who shared, and even if you didn't share, I think it's really inspiring to me when people show up and face what they're working on with a group of people. So thank you for that. Thanks for letting me be a part. Things I said I do, and I'll feel better when they're done. The list is long enough, and yet I add another one. Some voices say to go, and others say to slow it down. Wouldn't it be so nice to just take my time, take my time? Things I said I do, and I'll feel better when they're done. I'm finally calm, but it's not long before I have to run. I spend my time all alone, never at home. I've got my stray eyes set on either coast. Time like sand, and I've got hands of winter stone. I do, and I feel better when they're done. This life they say is good lately hasn't felt so fun. So much tired in my body, I don't wanna leave this bed. Give me room for indecision, give me fantasy instead. Aching in my body, I can't escape my head. It's time for a decision, not a fantasy. Again.
It's just been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for continuing to bring your gifts to Speakeasy. It really is. You might not
Appreciate
know this, but Seamus is the musician for the Voice Box story event that is hosted by Gene Dietrich in San Diego. So if you ever get out there, you can go see that show with this amazing musician. So that's very cool. Well, everybody have a wonderful rest of the week. Keep thinking about, how you want to move into your own activism, and let us know if you come up with any creative ideas that want to be supported. We would love to be able to do that here at Speakeasy with you in partnership. All right, God bless.